Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to show you how to remove, but more importantly, reassemble the lever and cylinder, or the knob, on this transatlantic global global door controls, they may have been called, now owned by a company called Imperial. This, we would have known this as a transatlantic at one time. I don't know how identical the design is between the old brand name Transatlantic, which goes back decades. They were located in Philadelphia and basically ceased operations, I think, in about the mid-2000s, 2005, something like that. Ownership retired. Sandy was the name of the customer service rep there. Global door controls, you see those door closers a lot out there because the names, literally, the name on the closer is cast. It says Global. But it's now owned by a company called Imperial USA. The bottom line is the trim is not well explained in terms of the reassembly. So the bottom line is you have this lever trim and you are going to rekey it. Well, that's going to require taking it apart, obviously. That's pretty easy. Most locks are always going to work on the principle, most, not always, but most, turn the key 90 degrees. You'll be able to depress the locking tab that's there and pull the trim off. That works just fine. The trick with this one, though, is it doesn't reassemble like every other lock. And I'm going to demonstrate that now and pull it apart, put it back together. Then after that, I will go on in terms of why it has to be reassembled that way. So let's do a quick demonstration now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So the quick demonstration is, as I had said earlier, rotate the key 90 degrees to the right. So what happened was my locksmith here rekeyed the cylinders but realized that she couldn't get them back together. And when you get, dealing with certain locks, it takes a little bit more study. So I'm going to rotate the key 90 degrees. I'm just going to hold it rotated 90 degrees. Then using my tool, I will be able to depress that pin. And I'll be able to, they're not easy. Yeah, you can feel the lever just creep ever so slightly, then you can pull that off. So now, the bottom line is I've removed the cylinder, I have removed the clip, I've pulled the plug, the plug out of the housing, I have recombinated or repinned the cylinder, I've put the clip back on. I'm going to now reinstall this back into the lever. After I've repinned it, the lever stop piece is in there. The key will go back in. Kind of use that as your handle. Now, you're going to insert that and try as you might. There's no way that you're going to turn that key 90 degrees and get it to not only assemble, but work correctly. Now, you can get it to go back together. There's no doubt. The problem is, and I just did, I turned the key 90 degrees to the right, I pushed it back together. Yeah, it works. I can rotate the key, but I can't pull that key out. Okay, it's in the wrong timed position. Here's how you do it. I'm going to take it apart again. That's really easy to do. What you do is rotate that key about 30 degrees clockwise. Okay. You can then slightly depress that tab. I'm going to use my fingernail, but you would just use your tool. At this point, you need to grab this. This is the key. You need to grab that and rotate it clockwise as well. Then you'll be able to push that in. Okay, that's how you do it. Now it works perfectly. Key's in the right orientation, and all it takes is taking that tailpiece and rotating it. What I've done is, if you recall, I turned that about 30 degree. I turned it about 30 degree. Well, from your perspective, like this. I then took this and rotated it to the same degree and then pushed it together. That's how you put it back together. The rest of this video is going to explain why it works that way. Only follow along if you're interested to know the back science of it. Thank you. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So how and why does this work the way it does? Well, it's a really simple concept. And the simple concept is, I'm going to explain it by showing you. Put the key in there just as a handle. The tailpiece, the orientation of the tailpiece. Okay, when the key's in the key pull position and you hold the cylinder like this part of the cylinder shell is called the Bible. Generally in locks, that'll be pointed towards the top of the trim, the knob. When it's in a lever, they take that and lay it on its side. Okay. When you have knob locks and the key is in the key pull position and the Bible is up, that tailpiece is generally horizontal, not vertical like this. It's vertical on this one because we have a lever. And when you have a lever, the tailpiece has to be in the vertical position because when you install the cylinder in a lever lock, you tip it on its side. And when you tip it on its side, that tailpiece becomes horizontal. So that's how that works. Whether it's this way or this way has everything to do with whether or not it's going to go back into the lock. Now, if you look down into the stem, you'll see that plus sign down there. You can enter that tailpiece into that plus sign down in there, either this way or this way. Okay, it has to go in one of the two ways, or it has to reside in that position. Now, this locking tab that's here, it's spring-loaded, and you can see when I pinch it, it moves down ever so slightly. What happens is this. In the proper assembled lock, when you have the trim, the lever or the knob on, you can't, when this is installed, you can't depress that tab to pull the trim off when it's in the locked position. That's what you want. Otherwise, anyone could get in. The way that works is that tab that you can push down, the movement of it is blocked by the tailpiece. So I can't push it down. But when I rotate, I now have enough room to push that down in order to get the trim pulled off, the lever or the knob. Okay. When you're in the locked position, you have nowhere to move. When I've got the key, I can then turn it and give me the room that's needed. Now, what happens with this lock is you'll notice inside of there, that spring tab that I'm pushing down on, right at the tip of my finger in here, it's not shaped like a square. It has that little hiccup, that little notch, that accommodation prepped in there. See it to the top and to the right of the tab itself, where it peaks up like this? That's evidence. That tells me, okay, that's got something to do with how this goes back together. The trick is, there is no way to get that turned. The back of the tailpiece must enter the inside hole of the tab that I'm pressing on. But you can see that there's no way to get it inside of there, rotated vertically, because if you rotate it horizontally and install it, then your key is going to be in the wrong orientation. The key will be trapped in there. There's no way to get that vertical and still allow room for the tab to depress, which it must in order to have the lever go down on it, because the tab is keeping the lever, the stem of the lever, from being pushed down. Only when you cheat the proper way, only when you turn that slightly, because turning that, and here's the key, turning that also turns the plus sign. I'm turning that. That's why it works that way. So once you understand that's how it works, then you can put them back together easily every single time. If you try to put it back together without doing that, only through sheer luck would you be able to do that. So I'm going to rotate, I'm going to depress that tab. It will only go so far. I'm going to rotate that small amount at 30 degrees. It may or may not go down a little bit further, but it really isn't going to. I'm going to turn the tailpiece, which turns the plus sign on the inside, and then push this together. And you'll find with the right amount of finesse was the word used yesterday to describe putting it back together. You'll find that it goes back together. That's why it works that way. So the key, my employee came to me last night and said we just couldn't figure out how to put them back together. Well, I got to work this morning and I've done these, but I've forgotten over the years. I first looked at it, inspected it, realized, oh, there's more to this than I immediately understand. And what was the first thing that I did? I read the instructions. That was the first thing I did. Okay. Many of us in the hardware industry are guilty of not reading instructions, but we are far more ready to say, okay, it's not, we first try to figure it out just visually. And when that fails, immediately go to the instructions. I, for one, have learned the hard way that you read the instructions first. That gives you the best chance of success. I read the instructions and they weren't clear because they're not clear. They say, turn key clockwise 90 degrees. And there's a link on this page as well that you can see. This will lock the lever handle to permit you to push down lever retainer pin, the tab I was calling it, and disengage lever from lock. It says now, please memorize the cylinder tail piece position, the flat bar on the back of the cylinder. This will aid you in putting the lever lock together and speed your installation process. Please, remove black plastic cylinder retainer, then remove cylinder after performing the service needed. Reverse the process mentioned above, making sure that the tailpiece is in the right position. If the tailpiece is not in proper position, you will not be able to either assemble, lock, or remove key from cylinder. You will not be able to either assemble, meaning reassemble it, or remove the key from the cylinder. You can put it back together, but the key's in the wrong orientation. You can never rotate it properly and remove the key. You can operate it, but the key's captured in there. The good news about that is when the key's captured in there, you can always depress the tab. You can always get the trim back off. What they should say is you must rotate that, like I said, turn your key to 30 degree, reassemble, turn your key to 30 degrees, stop. Immediately then start turning the tail piece or the drive member, whatever this is going to be defined as, which they don't define. You turn that as you compress the trim back together, and you're basically, again, taking that your tail piece is like this. You're taking your plus sign, which is like this. You're turning it. Sorry, I'm at 30 degree. You're turning this so that the two can go together. But when I'm like this, they don't go together. That's the bottom line. I hope that this will help someone someday. Even if you read the installation instructions, it's not obvious. Hardware like this, and it's not a slight, it's just a fact. The installation instructions are written by someone whose first language is in English, and assuming that that's what you're reading it in, you might find that the installation instructions are not worth a you-know-what, other people's words. But it does take analysis and figuring out what it is. That's the case with all hardware. Mechanical locks, are really great in the sense that some really smart person thought them up and they've built them in such a way that they can be assembled, which means they can be disassembled, partially disassembled, or fully disassembled, which means that you can study them. You can try to figure out why they work. It's positively 17th century technology, 18th century technology. So any modern man should be able to approach understanding it. Thank you very much. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Oh, and also I did want to mention that there's a way to actually cheat that whole process, although it would be completely the wrong way to do it. That tailpiece is vertical on the back of the cylinder, if you recall. If you were to remove that tailpiece and turn it 90 degrees to make it horizontal, you would then be able to get that reassembled. You would be able to get the cylinder reassembled, except you've rotated it. So it will now, the cylinder will be installed in the lever. The lever will completely go back onto the lock, and you'll be able to get the tab depressed and locked into the stem. But because you've manipulated the position of the tailpiece, you can always depress that tab in the edge, which means you're locked on the outside. You need a key to get in, but because you've bypassed the proper engineering of the lever by rotating the tailpiece, I could then come with any small pin instrument and be able to pull that off, insert a screwdriver in there, turn the plus sign, and be able to get in. So that's the other way that's the other way you could do it, but of course that would be problematic. There you go. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.